You ever watch a team win a game and still feel like they barely escaped with their dignity intact? That's exactly what went down when the Indiana Fever squeaked out a win over the Seattle Storm. And no one felt that more deeply than Sophie Cunningham. Because while the scoreboard might have shown a victory, Cunningham's body language told a different story entirely. She was fuming. And honestly, can you blame her? Sophie Cunningham shot 80% from three. 80%. That's the kind of number you print out, frame, and hang on your wall. She wasn't just hot, she was scorching. The net barely moved when she let it fly. Every time she touched the ball beyond the arc, you could almost hear the fans holding their breath. And then, swish, rinse and repeat. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. But here's the kicker. She barely touched the ball. While Cunningham was cooking, her teammates were, well, doing the opposite, particularly Kelsey Mitchell, who seemed to have blinders on the entire game. She shot 3 for 16 from the field, 0 for 8 from deep, and yet the ball kept finding its way back into her hands, like some cursed magnet, possession after possession, brick after brick, all while Sophie stood there, wide open on the wing, ready, poised, begging for the ball. She wasn't asking for a heat check. She was a heat check. And still, nothing. Now let's be clear. Basketball is a rhythm game. Confidence matters. Shooters gotta shoot. But at some point, someone's gotta say, hey, maybe let the person shooting 80% take the next one. Apparently, that conversation never happened. And as Seattle started mounting their comeback, an 11-0 run in the final minutes, you could see the cracks forming. The Fever weren't just struggling to score. They were refusing to adjust, refusing to play smart, refusing to recognize that maybe the best player on the floor that night wasn't their usual go-to. Maybe, just maybe, it was Sophie. And here's where things get tense. Because Cunningham didn't hide her frustration. She didn't throw a tantrum. But the eye rolls, the visible shrugging after missed passes, the pointed looks toward the bench after yet another wasted possession, she didn't have to say anything. Her face said it all. This wasn't just about being iced out. This was about disrespect. She was carrying the offense, saving the offense, if we're being honest, and her teammates were acting like she didn't exist. And Caitlin Clark, sitting on the sideline, watching this unfold, looked just as shocked as the rest of us. She wasn't the one on the court this time. She wasn't the one getting snubbed. But her expression during the second half said it all. Why aren't they giving Sophie the ball? That's the thing. Even Clark, rookie national lightning rod, face of the league, could see it. And yet, the offense never shifted. The plays didn't change. The ball continued to go through cold hands, not hot ones. Even in crunch time, with Seattle clawing back, Mitchell and others kept forcing contested shots while Cunningham stood, arms out wide open. It was basketball malpractice. And it raises a bigger issue, a much bigger issue, because this wasn't just one bad night. This wasn't just missing the open player a few times. This was systemic, philosophical. When a team can't recognize a hot hand, or worse, won't acknowledge it, it speaks to a serious breakdown in basketball IQ. And more than that, a breakdown in trust. Because at the end of the day, that's what this was, a trust issue. Cunningham earned those touches. She earned the right to close that game. But for some reason, her teammates either didn't notice or didn't care. And both options are equally damning. So now you've got a locker room situation brewing. You got a player who gave you one of the most efficient offensive performances of the season and got snubbed for it. You got a team that nearly collapsed in the final minutes because they were too stubborn to shift their focus. And you've got a coach who didn't do anything about it. That's right. Let's talk about the coaching for a second. Because at no point did the game plan shift towards Sophie. At no point did they draw up a set play to get her another look. No timeout adjustments. No audible strategy shift. And it wasn't like the game was out of reach. It was close. Seattle was charging. The crowd was tense. And still, nothing changed. That's not just bad decision-making. That's a failure in leadership. Because a good coach doesn't just play the percentages. They played a moment, and the moment was screaming, "Get the ball to Sophie." Instead, the Fever nearly let a statement when turned into an embarrassing collapse. So yes, Cunningham's frustration is valid. And honestly, it's overdue, because this kind of thing doesn't come out of nowhere. It builds up game after game, practice after practice. You make your shots, you stay in your lane, and you hope the team recognizes when it's your night. But when it is your night and they still ignore you, that cuts deeper than any loss. It says, we don't see you. We don't trust you. We don't value your game, even when you're the one holding the whole offense together. And the craziest part? The Fever won the game. That's what makes this so wild. Even in victory, the cracks are undeniable. Because what happens when it's not Seattle? What happens when it's a playoff team with more firepower and better closers? If the Fever can't make smart decisions when they're up 5, with one of their players shooting lights out, how will they manage a real playoff push? How will they handle games that matter? You think opposing teams haven't taken notes? You think they're not watching the film, circling Sophie on the screen, and laughing when the ball goes somewhere else? This isn't just a blip. It's a pattern, one that needs to be addressed fast. Because Sophie Cunningham isn't just a role player. She's a floor spacer, a leader, and, clearly, someone who can take over a game when given a chance. But if the team keeps ignoring that, they're going to lose her. Maybe not literally, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And once that happens, you don't just lose points. You lose buy-in. You lose chemistry. You lose culture. The Fever have to decide what kind of team they want to be. One that honors the hot hand, plays smart and adapts in real time, or one that lets ego and favoritism dictate every possession. Because this time they got away with it. They walked out with the win. But next time, if they pull the same stunt, it won't be just Cunningham giving them side-eye. It'll be the fans, the coaches, the whole league, wondering how you waste an 80% shooter and call it strategy. And honestly, that's the kind of thing that haunts a team, not just for one night, but all season long. It's the morning after the win, and the headlines read like a celebration. Indiana Fever win 5th straight. Fever continue hot streak without Caitlin Clark. But behind the curtain of victory, there's tension. It's subtle, unspoken. But if you were watching closely, you felt it. The team may be stacking wins, but the way they're doing it, that's raising eyebrows. Especially when one of your top performers looks like she just walked off the court after a loss. That was Sophie Cunningham's energy after the Seattle game. No smiles, no chest bumps, just a silent exit and an unmistakable message. I did my part. Why didn't anyone else? Let's rewind a bit. The first quarter was electric. Sophie caught fire early, sinking 2 deep threes like it was warm-ups. She wasn't forcing anything. It was pure rhythm. Quick release, high arc, nothing but net. Seattle couldn't close out fast enough. And yet, possession after possession, the ball kept getting funneled back to players who were, quite frankly, ice cold. It would have been comical if it weren't so frustrating. There's an unspoken rule in basketball. Every player knows it. Feed the hot hand. When someone is dialed in, you ride that wave until the wheels fall off. It's not personal. It's not about stat chasing. It's about winning. And when one of your teammates is hitting at an 80% clip from deep, the correct answer is never, let me take this contested mid-range jumper instead. Yet that's exactly what kept happening. Kelsey Mitchell, in particular, had what you generously call an off night. Her shot selection looked rushed. Her decision-making was disjointed. And yet, she continued to launch shots like it was her night to shine. Meanwhile, Sophie stood in the corner or curled around screens. Open, balanced, ready. Ignored. Again, and again, and again. It's not that Mitchell is a bad player. Far from it. She's one of the most talented guards in the league. But talent doesn't mean you get to shoot your way out of a funk when someone else is carrying the offense on their back. That's the moment where leaders step back and say, okay, it's your night. Let's go. That didn't happen. And as the game tightened in the final minutes, you could feel the walls closing in. Seattle smelled blood. Their bench was hyped. The 11-0 run they went on wasn't just a fluke. It was a direct result of Indiana losing their identity in real time. Instead of recognizing what was working and doubling down, they got tunnel vision, desperation shots, missed rotations, no communication. And Sophie, she just kept doing her job. She hit another three, hustled on defense, rotated with precision, and still nothing changed. Not once did the offense run through her. Not once did the coaching staff call a timeout and say, "Let's get Sophie a look." It was almost as if her performance was an inconvenience, as if acknowledging it would disrupt the usual hierarchy. And that's where this gets deeper, because this wasn't just about one game. This was about a pattern, a culture, a question that's becoming harder to ignore. Who gets the lead on this team and why? When Caitlin Clark's on the floor, it's obvious. The game bends around her. The offense runs through her. Everyone adjusts. But when she's not there, you'd think it would be an open door for someone like Sophie to step in and fill that leadership vacuum. She has the experience, the shooting, the energy. And yet, even at her best, she still gets treated like a role player, like a placeholder. That's not just bad strategy. That's bad culture. Because when your own teammates don't recognize that a player is having a career night, it means the trust isn't there. Or worse, it means the ego is. Basketball is full of unselfish quotes in post-game interviews. We just play for each other. We share the ball. We trust the hot hand. But when the game starts and bodies hit the hardwood, the truth reveals itself. And in this game, the truth was that Sophie Cunningham wasn't in the inner circle of players who get to take over, even when she should have been. Now, let's talk about the coaching staff. Because this part, it's inexcusable. There's a reason coaches exist. To recognize what players sometimes can't. To pull them aside and say, "We're switching it up." To see the game from the top down and say, "We're riding Sophie until they figure out how to stop her." That never happened. No tactical shift. No timeout to reset the floor. No late game sets designed to free Sophie off a screen. Just more ISO ball. More four shots. More stubborn offense that nearly cost them the game. This wasn't an execution problem. It was an identity crisis. The Fever looked like a team unsure of who they were without Clark. And in that hesitation, they defaulted to chaos. Hero ball. Panic. And here's the danger. If this becomes a blueprint, if the team continues to ignore the players who are actually delivering in favor of pre-decided pecking orders, they're not just hurting their chances to win. They're burning trust. You think Sophie doesn't feel that? You think she didn't go back to the locker room wondering what else she could have done? She gave them a nearly flawless performance. On paper, it was the kind of night that should have been celebrated. The kind of night that should have sent a clear message. Sophie Cunningham is a problem. She can win us games. But instead, she walked off with her head down. Not because they lost, but because she was never really given the game to begin with. That's the part that sticks. And it's not going to go away quietly. Because Cunningham isn't a player who holds grudges. But she remembers. She's vocal. She's strategic. And more than that, she's aware. She knows that nights like that don't come around often. And when they do, you capitalize. You demand the ball. You ride it out. If your team can't recognize it in the moment, it's not just a missed opportunity. It's a red flag. The Fever are a young team with real talent. And this 5-game win streak, it's impressive. But if they want to evolve beyond just scrappy underdogs and actually be a postseason threat, they have to clean this up. Because right now, their offense is built more on habits and awareness. More on assumptions and recognition. And if that doesn't change, they're going to waste more than just Sophie's hot hands. They're going to waste their window. So here's the takeaway. The Fever need a system, not just star power. They need accountability, not just vibes. And they need to look at the tape from this game and learn from it. Because there's nothing more dangerous than a team that refuses to adjust in the middle of a win. You might escape with a W today. But if you keep snubbing your best players when they're shining the brightest, eventually the losses will catch up. And by then, the trust you lost won't be easy to rebuild. Yes, they walked away with a win. Yes, it's technically their 5th in a row. But anyone who actually watched the game knows that this wasn't a case of solid, strategic basketball coming through in the clutch. This was a win in spite of themselves. And at the center of that contradiction is Sophie Cunningham, standing wide open on the perimeter while her teammates hoisted up bricks like they were trying to build a house. And when we say bricks, we mean bricks. It's not just that shots were missed. It's that the shots being taken made no sense. Off balance, contested early in the shot clock, completely ignoring the one player who was literally lighting it up from deep like she was in a video game. Sophie shot 80% from three. That's not good. That's historic. We should be getting her the ball on every single possession until she finally cools off type of night. But the Fever, they didn't pivot. They didn't shift to what was working. They played like they had no clue someone on their team was single-handedly bailing them out. That kind of oversight, it doesn't happen on accident. It happens when teams are too wrapped up in their own routines to actually see what's happening in front of them, when hierarchy and habit override instinct and awareness, when a team becomes so scripted that even when someone is on fire, they're still not allowed to take the lead. And that's the trap the Fever are in right now. It's easy to get drunk on wins. It's easy to look at a streak and say, well, clearly what we're doing is working, but winning 5 games in a row doesn't mean your system is sound. Especially when one of those wins came dangerously close to becoming a meltdown, because your offense was too proud, too stubborn, or too disorganized to just ride the hot hand. Sophie didn't need to take over the entire game. She didn't need 30 shots. But she needed more than the measly, dismissive, blink and you miss it look she got down the stretch. That's not just bad offense. It's disrespectful. It sends a message, whether intentional or not. We don't trust you enough to let you finish this. And that's a message no player forgets. You better believe Sophie won't. Because it's not just about this game. It's about every other time she's been open, every time she's made the extra pass, played her role, hit her shots, and waited for the moment when the team would say, okay, it's your night. That moment finally came. And instead of giving her the keys, they locked the doors and threw her the spare tire. And now you've got a chemistry problem. Because it's one thing to miss shots. That happens. But when players start to feel that their contributions are invisible, especially when they're making a difference, resentment creeps in. It's subtle. It starts with frustration, eye rolls, conversations in the tunnel. But left unchecked, it turns into fractures, division, doubt. And for a young team like Indiana, that's the last thing they can afford. Right now, the Fever are in a delicate place. They've got momentum. They've got public attention. And they've got the rare luxury of being in the media cycle for something positive. Wins, streaks, highlight plays. But all that goes out the window if the internal culture starts rotting from the inside. Because here's the truth. Caitlin Clark is still the centerpiece of this franchise. When she's healthy, the ball runs through her. The media follows her. The game slows down for her. That's a given. But that doesn't mean the team should fall apart without her. And it definitely doesn't mean that other players should feel ignored while stepping up in her absence. If the Fever want to be anything more than just Caitlin's team, they need to prove that they know how to function when she's off the court. And right now, they're not doing that. This game exposed it in real time. The problem isn't a lack of talent. The Fever have scorers. They've got spacing. They've got a solid front court. But their decision-making? That's where it all breaks down. It's in the choices. Choosing to ISO when the defense is set. Choosing to shoot early when the clock has time. Choosing to pass to someone shooting 18% from 3 instead of the one shooting 80%. Those aren't just bad decisions. They're avoidable ones. They're the kind of choices that don't just impact the box score. They impact morale. They shape locker room dynamics. They tell your teammates what kind of system you really have. One that rewards feel and instinct, or one that blindly follows a script no matter what's actually happening on the floor. If it's the latter, Sophie's not the only one who should be frustrated, because this system is going to limit the Fever in the long run. Let's talk playoffs. You don't get to make those kind of mistakes in the postseason and survive. Opposing teams will punish you for ignoring your best shooters. They'll double your stars and dare you to trust your role players. And if you don't, they'll break you. Right now, Indiana has played with a false sense of security. 5 wins in a row is nice. But winning doesn't always mean you played well. It just means you survived the night. This game, that was a survival story. And the only reason they didn't leave with a loss was because Sophie Cunningham kept doing her job, even while everyone else forgot. Now here's the critical next step. Someone, whether the coach, a captain, or even Caitlin when she returns, has to address this. Because if they don't, the message to players like Sophie is loud and clear. We don't know how to adjust. We don't know how to reward performance. And we don't trust anyone who wasn't handed the ball from day one. That's a recipe for disaster. Cunningham isn't some emotional rookie throwing a fit over touches. She's a pro. She knows how this league works. She understands flow, chemistry, momentum. But she also knows when something's broken. And right now, she's sounding the alarm. You can't build a winning team if your own players don't feel seen. You can't grow if you ignore the signs that something is wrong, especially when those signs are dropping threes and locking up on defense, while everyone else struggles to find the basket. This game should have been a celebration of Sophie Cunningham. Instead, it turned into a quiet reminder that not every win is worth clapping for. And if Indiana doesn't fix that, they'll be clapping alone.